Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kelsey and I'm here today to do my October wrap up. This will be the last time I mention this in a video, but if you didn't know, at the end of October, I did go into emergency surgery. You can see kind of an explanation for that at the end of my Thrillathon vlog. And because of that, I didn't read much during the last week of October. However, I did still have an insanely great reading month, and most of that was due to the Thrillathon. However, before we get into any of that summaries, I do always like to start off these wrap-up videos with statistics. So for the month of October, I did read 15 books, and that came out to a total of 5,644 pages read, which is about 182 pages per day. Fantastic. Good on me. And then 87 hours out of those pages and books was listened to on audio. In regards to the rating, this is where it's really exciting because I had a great month of ratings. I had 2 5-star books, 6 4-star books, 7 3-star books, and then 0 2-star books, 0 1-star books, 0 DNFs, an average rating of 3.82.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Literally unheard of for this channel. I'm so happy. I had a great reading month. There's not one book here that I particularly hated. In regards to the author's identity, I did read from 9 female authors, 7 male authors.
Literally, what the fuck is wrong with me? It's 5 authors. It was right in front of my face the whole time. I was just reading. I don't understand.
And 1 author that identifies as non-binary. In regards to the age demographic, I read 7 adult books, 5 YA books, and 3 middle grade books. And then just in regards to the format of the books, I read 6 audiobooks, so that's where that 87 hours comes in, 2 ebooks, and 7 physical books. Again, sometimes these are a bit skewed. Sometimes I listen to the audiobook in tangent with reading it physically or by ebook. So some of these statistics might be a little skewed, but whatever, who cares? So firstly, to start off, I do want to talk about the vlogs I have available for you because I will not be talking about these books in this video. The first of which is my monthly vlog for the Heroes of Olympus series. This month, it was the Son of Neptune. I really enjoyed my experience with the Son of Neptune, and I gave this 4 stars. So if you would like to see all of my further thoughts, linked up above for you. And then of course, we have the infamous Thrillathon vlog, where I read a bunch of books. The first book I read for the Thrillathon was Sheets, which I gave 4 stars to. Then I read Fangs, which I also gave 4 stars to. Then I completed Paranorthern and the Chaos Bunny Apocalypse, which I gave 3 stars to. I read Fledging, which I also gave 3 stars to. Then I read The Empress of Time, which I gave 4 stars to. Babel, which was one of my 5-star reads of the month. Absolutely fantastic. Loved it. You could check that vlog, but oh my God, this was amazing and what a wonderful experience, and that's all I'm gonna say. And then of course, Demon Slayer Volume 1, which I gave a 3.5 stars to. So if you would like any of my thoughts on any of those books, you could check the link above to the Thrillathon vlog, and also an explanation of what happened to me at the end of the month. Now we'll get into the books that I don't have any videos or content about. The first book I completed in the month of October is Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. This is the 4th book in the Throne of Glass series, which is a series of books that follows an assassin named Selena Sardothian, who is kind of tricked into becoming the assassin of the king. And then from that point on, a completely new world of magic and demons and stuff like that opens for Selena, and we follow her along as she navigates through these different worlds. So this is my second read of this particular book. The first time I read this book, I gave it a 4 stars. However, on this round, I definitely became a bit more picky and noticed a bit more things that bother me in the book. This book really reminded me why I don't like Selena as a main character. Without getting into spoilers, I really detest how Selena creates and follows through with these plans that nobody knows about, including the readers. And I just don't think that's possible because we are in Selena's brain. I don't understand why we don't know about these plans. And while that didn't particularly bother me, I think the first time I read this book, because it's not as obvious in this book, and I think they come off more as twists. When you're rereading it and when you come off of her doing this shit in multiple other books, it's fucking annoying. And it really reminded me why Selena is a character that I just don't jive with. I also found that this book is incredibly long. However, the addition of 2 new characters in the book, Lysandra and Manon, completely revitalized the book for me. They are incredible. I love Manon particularly. She was my favorite character when I read the Throne of Glass series the first time. She's definitely my favorite character coming in. I just think she's so badass. I also think Lysandra grew on me way faster this time around, and I think it's particularly because I know where Lysandra's character moves from, but they both stuck to me really well. I absolutely love them. The character I hate the most in the entire fucking universe is Adian. I don't understand why we have his perspective. I think we could do without his inclusion in the plot. I really hate him. I'm fed up of him. He really brings down the book for me, and I absolutely despise when he's in the book. I hate him so much. But anyways, I gave this a 3.5 stars. So not the biggest or drastic of loss in rating, but definitely noticeable for me that I had to lower it. After that, I wanted something like not light to enjoy, because I wouldn't say that the series is light to enjoy, but I needed something like familiar to me. I was definitely feeling slumpy and gross, so I just wanted to pick up something that I know, and I picked up Neon Genesis Evangelion. This is the omnibus edition, the second one, but this collects volumes 4, 5, and 6 in it, and it's written by Yoshiyuki Sadamoto. I love Neon Genesis Evangelion. I don't think that that's shocking to people. If you know anything about me, Neon Genesis Evangelion is one of my favorite animes of all time. I think it's so fucking sick. It basically primarily follows this kid named Shinji, who is the son of a director of this company called Nerve. And Nerve is important to the story because this novel takes place in a futuristic Tokyo, or what was futuristic at the time of the 90s, but I'm pretty sure it's like 2020. Which is not futuristic anymore, but whatever. It takes place in what is Tokyo 3, version 3 of Tokyo, because they keep getting attacked by these beings called the angels, or what they refer to as these angels. And these angels are actually more reminiscent of what is actually thought of as angels in a biblical sense. They come down to earth to basically destroy the world. So Nerve is created where these children are set to operate these robotic beings called Evangelions, and only the children are able to operate that. There's a reason for it. We don't get into it yet. But in this book, we are also introduced to a third character named Asuka, who I absolutely adore. I love this character in the anime. And we'll kind of get into my review here. So I personally found this volume to be much more impactful than its predecessor. Firstly, we are introduced to Asuka, who is arguably one of my favorite children from the anime. She's fiery and she's spunky, and this leads to a lot of comedic moments. I definitely think Asuka is placed there as a contrast to Shinji to provide these comedic moments. However, what I really appreciate about Asuka as well is that we definitely see her insecurities. She has a lot of them. And I always really enjoyed how Sadamoto turns this tsundere trope on its head by giving more layers to Asuka other than her just being like the bully girl character. Additionally, we also get more glimpses into Shinji's character and Shinji's psyche in this book. And as usual, it always destroys me. Shinji is a character close to my heart. I love Shinji, and I definitely think what he goes through is realistic to what is happening around him, but also really sad. And I think if you're feeling these moments of like melancholy and depression, Shinji definitely is a character that you will cling to. There is a lot of discussions in not only this volume, but in the series in general on depression, and specifically how each individual child is affected by piloting these Evas. This manga also opens up what becomes the ultimate like moving plot point in the series, looking at what exactly are the Evas, why are the children the only ones that are able to operate them, and what is being hidden from these children. The adult characters in the novel are essentially forcing these children to go to war to operate these mechanical beings, but there's no explanation as to why the children are the only ones that can, and is slowly like touched upon or revealed within this novel. And then finally, this novel ends on an extremely somber note. And even though I knew it was gonna happen, I expected it to happen at the end of this volume. The scene makes me cry so much no matter how I experience it. Really love this. I gave it 4.5 stars. I don't think it's surprising. I definitely have a soft spot for Neon Genesis Evangelion, so I don't expect any of the volumes going forward to receive less than that. After that, I picked up The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel. I did read this for my Professor Kelsey's book club that I do host on my friend's YouTube channel, which I will leave the link down below. We haven't set a date for the live show, so I'm just gonna go ahead and give my review here because we're definitely not gonna touch upon like the in-depth literary discussions that I do get into within those discussions. This will just be like a very surface level review for you guys. But basically, The Glass Hotel follows a character named Vincent, and at the start of the novel, we see that she has fallen off of a boat, and the novel turns back in time to kind of follow Vincent and the other people that surround her in her life. What we know about Vincent is that she is a bartender at this really fancy hotel called the Hotel Cayette, and it is a completely covered glass hotel. While working, Vincent meets this finance bro guy named Jonathan Atkins, and their romance kind of begins, which is one of the moving plots in the novel. But the same night that she meets this man, a ominous message is written on the glass of the hotel, and that's kind of where the story like surrounds. It surrounds this message that has been written on the hotel. So I'm really surprised by how much I enjoyed this book. Primarily, just getting it out of the way, Mandel's writing is phenomenal. He knew that from Station 11, and I was going into this book expecting nothing less from her. I ended up finding her writing to be a little bit more impactful in this one than in Station 11. Perhaps it is due to the melancholy feel of the book, but I think her prose really shined in this one. Readers are pulled back and forth over the course of 20 years, and while it can definitely be confusing at first, once you start picking the pieces together and realizing what's going on, I think the novel really comes together. There's a lot of discussion in this novel on loss and grief and opportunity, and I think Mandel did an excellent job by having each individual character demonstrate this. The novel does have this underlying mystery over the course of the book that you're like kind of trying to solve, but not really. And while the why of it is explained, which made me gasp, the characters' reactions to this event and how we process them is up to the readers. For me, what I believe the main theme of this novel is mental health and depression in particular, which is why I think Mandel's writing bodes well for the atmosphere of the novel, and also how this depression affects the novel's grandiose characters. The novel sets out to connect you with these complicated characters, so this is like a fair warning to really plot-driven readers, because I wouldn't necessarily say the plot is the most engaging. Even though the Ponzi scheme forefront plot is interesting in and of itself, you're definitely spending a lot of time with characters, and that's something I particularly enjoy. I love character-based books, so I really like this. I gave it 4 stars. I would highly recommend it, but I would say it's very different from Mandel's Station 11. And there's also some like Easter eggs in here, which I think is really cool. And if you finish both books, you can kind of look them up and see like how they're related. I think that was really well done. After that, I decided to like dive into a like Stephen King-y type of reading. So I started off with the next book in my Stephen King like reading order, which I'm trying to read like publication order, but there's some books that I just have read beforehand that were more interesting to me, and now I'm trying my best to like follow along. So the next book I had to read was actually a Richard Bachman book, which was The Long Walk. So The Long Walk is again written by Richard Bachman, which is Stephen King's pseudonym, where he writes, I wouldn't say like different horror, but kind of. It's more like realistic in a sense, or more like dystopian in a sense. This follows a young boy named Ray Garrity who is about to participate in the yearly Long Walk. And this walk is essentially a group of 100 boys walking at a steady pace of 4 miles per hour without ever stopping. And if they do, they lose the walk. So the goal is to make the entire walk, be the last one walking to win the prize. I think King really presented some interesting discussions in this book, and particularly and probably the most obvious one is the meaning of life, questioning what life is. The boys in this novel are really pushed to the brim of what they are capable of, and it kind of makes the walk itself a symbol of them walking through their life, because they experience friendship, they experience love, they experience the failing of their bodies. And the boys end up having these contemplative conversations about why they even ended up participating in this walk and enduring this physical pain. They all know that they have a 1% chance of being the last one, and yet they still chose to go through with it, ultimately knowing that they are walking to their death. While I found this to be a really interesting discussion, the novel itself, the plot itself, was not the most engaging thing. The description of their pain and the mental strain that they're going through was extremely uncomfortable. I think Stephen King did an excellent job with this. I definitely felt queasy while listening to it, but I do find that there was kind of a drag in the middle portion of the novel that I definitely felt brought the novel down for me. However, unlike most of King's other novels, I actually found the ending in this book to be quite profound. I really enjoyed it. I think the ending here is really strong and it's very symbolic of the novel's overall narrative. Although I do feel like there is a death in here that was a bit of a cop-out, but whatever, like I'm not gonna complain. This was actually a satisfying ending by King, so I should just be happy for it. I ended up giving this a 3.5. It's not my favorite Stephen King, but I definitely found it to be engaging enough, and I do think a lot of people will enjoy this. I'm just gonna go ahead and talk about Stephen King's son that I also read. So I read a Stephen King, I was like, you know what? I have a Joe Hill on my TBR. Let's read it. This is Horns. I particularly bought this because Daniel Radcliffe plays the main character in the movie version of this, and I really love the trailer. I've never watched it, but I really liked the trailer when it had come out, and I thought that Daniel Radcliffe did a fucking funny job, and he was super like into the character, and I love the shift that Daniel Radcliffe did from Harry Potter to this. So I bought Horns wanting to read this so then therefore I can watch the movie. So I guess I could watch the movie. Have I watched it since I read this? No. Did Halloween come and pass? Yes. But I digress. This follows a man named Ignatius Parrish, and he spends the night drinking and doing horrible things because it is the anniversary of his ex-girlfriend's death. A death of which he is accused of murdering. However, it was never really proven, so he spends this anniversary kind of wallowing in itself. When he wakes up the next morning, however, he realizes that he has 2 horns on his head and he can make people do whatever he wants. So I think that this was a really interesting novel. Like I said, this was my first Joe Hill, and I will say if you're particularly well-versed in Stephen King, I wouldn't say I'm the most well-versed, but I've read enough Stephen King to say this, that I think you'll find comfort reading Joe Hill if you haven't. The premise for this novel was really cool. Like I said, it got to me that first time I saw Daniel Radcliffe, and I really enjoyed how Hill tackled this somewhat innocent character turning into a devilish figure. This, paired with the discussions surrounding religion and sinning, is what kept me really engaged in the novel. I find the discussions around religion and religious figures to be particularly interesting to me. I figured out the mystery aspect of the novel pretty early on, but I was still engaged to read about Ig's friendship with this character named Lee and how they winded up where they are by the end of the novel. However, I will say that this book's pacing is probably its overall downfall. The switching between different points in time in their lives, I don't think worked well because it didn't feel balanced to me. Sometimes one section was too long and I felt bored, but then we would move into the next section and then that section was too long, so I felt bored. So I just feel like a more natural balance could have worked better. As well, much like with his father, Stephen King, I think there's a lot of nonsense in their novels, like swear words and derogatory terms and sexual assault against women that happens in a novel to make particular character, the evil character of the novel, unspeakably evil. And I'm a little annoyed by that. I think it could be done in a more delicate way. I don't think it needs to be as overt as both he and his father do. This is a critique of both of them. But I still enjoyed this novel. Like I said, the discussions surrounding religion were interesting. And I guess for a novel where you have devils, unspeakable evil might be necessary. I ended up giving this 3.5 stars, but I definitely would read more of Joe Hill in the future. I think he's incredibly talented. And for a Nepo baby, good on you, Joe. After that, I received an arc for How to Succeed in Witchcraft by Aslan Brophy. And this book follows an overachieving junior named Shay. In this world, witchcraft is pretty prevalent. It exists, it surrounds us, and there's even high schools for it. Our main character, Shay, attends this high school called TK Anderson that is a magnet school and one step closer to getting into the prestigious colleges that she needs in order to have certified jobs in the future, basically. And one additional way to get her ticket to the top is to win the Brockton Scholarship. In order to do that is to impress the drama teacher, Mr. B, and her main competition for the scholarship for impressing Mr. B is her scholarly rival named Anna. Overall, I had a great time reading this book. I think it definitely tackled a lot of important topics while still remaining kind of light, although I would say there's a major trigger warning for grooming by a teacher, which I think is really important to make clear before people go into the novel, because I was really uncomfortable by reading this. So I just think it's an important trigger warning because it's not necessarily said anywhere within the synopsis. I did really enjoy Shay as a main character. I think she was confident but also insecure in relatable ways, and I think a lot of young teenagers can see themselves within Shay. I also really loved her romance. It was the perfect amount of rivals to lovers that made me smile whenever they interacted with one another. And as mentioned, there was a very tough but important look on teacher-student dynamics that I actually think was handled really well and realistic. My biggest issue with the novel, however, is the entire world building of our world with this magical twist. Yes, it is set in the modern USA with magic, so I could just really like think of myself in the US. But there was a lot of discussions on like licensing job versus non-licensing jobs and teenagers moving to these communes and creating cults, which never really had anything to do with anything in the plot. But I would have loved to read that story. That sounded super interesting. So there was just a lot that was left unclear and I felt like needed a bit more development. Overall, I did enjoy my time with this and I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. And then finally, the last book I read this month, I finally got my hands on a copy of I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. I think you've probably heard about this novel. It has been blowing up everywhere. It's extremely hyped. Everybody has been reading it. And I have to say that I also read this and enjoyed this. This follows Jeanette McCurdy's life starting from when she is really young to about, I would say like 25 probably. And it follows her career into acting, her relationship with her mother, and her relationship to her eating disorder. So this was an incredible book to read, and listening to it on audio narrated by Jeanette McCurdy herself was a really impactful experience. I think the writing will take a while to get into, and I think that that is one of the biggest critiques of this book, especially for those who are more used to standard celebrity memoirs. However, I think that the novel is purposefully distant, cold, and simple and removed because it is the way that McCurdy herself, I think, feels about her past. And it's written in this kind of like childlike way where this adult is kind of interjecting. And I think it was very interestingly done. And I feel like it added so much to McCurdy's words. I listened to this literally all in one day on the last day of October because I just could not put this down. I was so engaged with her writing, with her story. I give this 5 stars. She literally deserves every glowing review she's getting. And I cannot wait to read more from her in the future. I heard that Jeanette really wants to tackle fiction and I'm very interested to see where that goes. I think she deserves this opportunity. I absolutely love this. Like I said, 5 stars, one of the best books I read this year. And that's it. Those are all of the books I read in the month of October. Please let me know if you've read any of these books. Did you like them? Did you hate them? Do you agree with me? Let me know. Also, if you would like to follow me on any of my other social medias, I do leave a link down below to my Twitter, Goodreads, and Instagram if you would like to follow me there. And because it is the end of the video, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. As I tell you every time, it makes me feel really special and does wonders for my channel. And I never know how to end these things after saying that, so I will see you next time. Okay, bye!